Jamie Becker is an adoptive mama, a bio mama, a foster mama, a special needs mama, a deaf kid's mama, an autism kiddo's mama, a deeply flawed and often weary parent, a pastor's wife, a sister of 4 women, a mama to 4 little women, a mentor, a teacher, a speaker, a writer. But before all of those things, she's just a girl. And she's just a girl that lives in New Jersey with her husband, Doug, and their daughters. So welcome, Jamie.
Thank you, Jen.
It is fun to have you here. And that's a lot in that bio. So it's exhausting. But why don't you take a moment?
Much less living it.
That's right. Yes. Yes. So why don't you just take a minute, tell us just a little bit more, maybe where you grew up, a little bit more about your family, why you're in New Jersey, things like that.
Sure. So I grew up in Texas. I don't have much of a Texas accent left. That's gone. So far removed. I'm pushing 40 now, and I've been out of Texas since I was 18. So I think I said in that bio, I had 4 sisters growing up. I grew up with 4 sisters, and then I chose to have, and I did, which is a story that we'll get into, I chose to have 4 daughters. So it's been quite the ride. And I did grow up in a Christian home and have wonderful, wonderful parents. So, and then I met my husband at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago on a blind date. And blind dates can be successful because 16 years of marriage later, we are very happy and very much still in love. So it worked out.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad. Well, I'm excited to have you here today to talk about something that you do very well, which is being an advocate and advocacy. And now I have had the pleasure of knowing you for many years. And shortly after we met, though, while you were in the Chicago area, you had a health crisis. Can you tell us a little bit about what was going on and what caused you concern?
So we lived in Chicago, and we were able to get pregnant with our first daughter, our only biological daughter, Caroline. And she really was a miracle. I say each one of my girls are miracles for different reasons. And as we were expecting her, we moved out to New Jersey. Got to New Jersey. Doug was an intern, a pastoral intern at a church, and I just got so sick. After I had her, I guess she was about 3 months old, 2 months old. I started where I couldn't keep anything down. I couldn't keep down any solid at all. And as soon as I had a solid, it would come back up. So that's not ideal when you're
ever. It's not ideal ever.
Yes, Jen, it is never ideal. So, and it's just very disconcerting as a person who's trying to be a brand new mom and have energy to take care of your children, and you can't keep any calories in your body. So I basically lived on Ensure and Gatorade for a couple months and had to emergency stop breastfeeding. Cara, doctor said, you absolutely have to stop. Literally, we're watching your baby get chubbier and chubbier as babies should, and you're just wasting away to nothing. So, I think I lost something I don't recommend it for anyone. I think I lost something like 35 pounds in a month. So, and I was so weak, and no doctor could figure out what was wrong with me. At the time, we went to doctor after doctor. Most of them said it was all in my head. Even if they took that seriously and said, you have postpartum depression. And I initially said, I don't feel depressed. I feel like I would be honest with myself if I was depressed. They said, no, you're depressed, and that's why you're throwing up. I'm like, I don't feel like I am. So it was just kind of this weird cycle, and said, well, now since no one believes me, I am depressed.
I know. I was going to say it leads to depression.
I remember just the look in my husband's eyes, the look in my relatives' eyes, where I could realize they no longer believed me when I'd say, no, I'm trying. Like, I just can't keep my lunch down.
Yeah.
So, finally, I went to the ER multiple times to be rehydrated via IV when Kara was little, and again, I remember that feeling, man, my heart. You know what, Jen? Everything I go through, I feel like God can use that to like give you compassion and empathy for someone else who's going through it. I really believe that, and I really have a lot of empathy for people going through postpartum depression. Because I got to the ER and I remember people surrounding me saying, oh, she's not doing well. I was having a panic attack and I had never had a panic attack. I didn't know what it was. And this woman came in who was a patient advocate, might I say. That's kind of funny for this broadcast. And she came in and she immediately was like, is your husband hurting you? And I was like, no, I love him. No. And she's like, are you hurting anyone else? And I'm like, no. I mean, like, it was just like weird, invasive and like odd questioning. And then I remember her saying, and it scared me to death. She said, do you want to hurt your child? And I said, no. Like, why are you going there from I'm sick and I can't keep food down? So it's so weird, the things that you run into that scare you and you go, wait a second, you're the advocate here?
Yeah.
So I didn't even know what to make of it. I was so scared they were going to take my baby from me. They said, we're going to get you an emergency appointment with a gastroenterologist the next day. I go, and he's supposedly this great gastroenterologist. And he was right. He was right about the diagnosis. He was wrong about the prognosis. So I get there and he said, we started our day early. We had a meeting about your case, and we're gravely concerned about you. And he said, you're the worst case we've ever seen in our practice of something called gastroparesis. Basically, your stomach has become paralyzed. And he said, I just remember this horrible sinking feeling. And he goes, I'm so sorry, but you're incompatible with existence. That was the sentence. You are incompatible with existence.
So he was the definition of doctors have no bedside manner. I mean,
ding, ding! Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
That's definitely what we felt from him. And we left the office, went into the hallway. We had late Kara in a carrier. And he came up to her, got right in her face, this tiny little baby. And he goes, I'm so sorry about your mama. And then he walked away. And Doug and I were hysterical because he basically just said, you're dying. There's nothing we can do. We found out he was wrong. There was a lot they could do.
Yeah. So you're at this point, nobody is believing you. They're trying to push you down this path. And, people are praying and people are supportive.
Yes.
In general, but what was it that had you finally go, all right, enough? I am going to fight for this.
Right. I think I was coming to terms with, and he said, whatever you do, don't go home and look this up, which lasted a couple hours of hysteria. And then we finally went, wait a second, like why? So the
more you know.
Yeah, the more you know. And it said, oh, you could have a pacemaker put on your stomach. And all these experimental surgeries. And then also I could literally just have a J tube, which would have stunk. Not fun. Not a G tube, but a J tube inserted directly, just circumvent my entire stomach. Okay. So luckily, and by the grace of God, we went in for a procedure that very day. Endoscopy, confirmed that he was correct about the diagnosis. And then he said, okay, let's try you on this medicine. We have no idea if it'll work on you. I had to go on a big amount of it, but it basically pumped my stomach. Okay. So I survived, but it was a rough, and then I get flares of it. So every couple years, in fact, 2 years ago, I got a flare and it caused a miscarriage. 2 years ago, I was pregnant and it caused a miscarriage, and it was devastating. And it was a full month of me being extremely weak. So it's just, it's in those times, and Jen, those are the times in my life that I feel like I can look at and say, I'm so much stronger of a person than back then when I like listened to a doctor say that. Like now today, I know how to advocate for myself better and for my children. And I feel like I would have said, what do you mean by that? And like, I was so young and so just naive and
and trusting. They're the professionals. They went to school. They know. So why would you question what they're telling you? That's what you're paying them for.
And I feel like it was, in a sense, it's so interesting. I'm such a verbal learner. I learned by verbalizing it all. I feel like it was a path in which I then was able to now add to, take that experience, take another experience, take another, and add to. If I thought that was an offensive thing for a medical professional to say to me, just Jamie, you wait, because then I had special need children, multiple special need children, where I would get these huge sentences said to me that were just that if I had worse things said to me at different times, I wouldn't have learned to say, now, what do you mean by that?
Right. So let's go back a little bit. Before you had Kara, you were working as a nanny, and I think you might have even continued after she was born, if I'm remembering right. But and one thing I observed was you seemed to have infinite patience and this special ability to focus on the kids and what they needed. And so I always knew that you were going to be an amazing mom. And we still talk about a lot of things that you influence with our kids. Jamie and Doug watch them every once in a while, and we're their Sunday school teachers. But when you dreamed of starting your family, having grown up with 4 sisters, what was your picture of what you thought your family would look like?
So I always, back when I was 16, I used to watch a show. I don't know if you remember it, but on TLC, before TLC was really weird. And it was called Adoption Story. And it showed couples that were it was all international adoption. So they would go to the airport, and for Korean adoption, literally go to the airport and meet their child at the airport. First time they met, and then they adopted them. And I would just watch this show like 6 inches from the screen and just like be so enthralled with it and cry and just say, this is what I want. Like, I want to adopt one day. This is so interesting to me. And so like, why only make babies? Why not take care of babies that already exist? And I had no idea how hard it would be, even the process itself. And Jen, you can attest to that. But that was just my dream. And when Doug and I were dating in Chicago at Moody, I remember exactly what street we were on. I turned to him while we were just dating, but we were very serious, looking forward to marriage. And I turned to him and said, I want to know if you're okay with the fact that I don't just want biological children. In my mind, my dream is to also adopt. Are you okay with that? And he said, yes. And I held him to it.
You sure did.
And it went beyond what we thought. We thought maybe we'd have 1 adopted child, and here we are with 3 adopted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll start. I was going to tell you, when I worked at O'Hare during college, I worked the international inbound flight from Tokyo. And a lot of times I was accompanying through customs the grandmas that traveled to get the babies from Korea, and I would bring them through to meet their families. That was my very favorite thing when I worked there. So it was cool. I was always sobbing, Yeah.
Oh, people were nice to us. Every different time where we've been around adoption day with one of our kids or out and about with them in their adoption dresses. I always dress them the same. People are just like, oh, we're so happy for you. Like, it is something that people they're amazed by it because it is a different way to go about growing your family.
Yeah.
Beautiful way. It's not for everybody. I've started to say, as I advocate for adoption, advocate for different children, I do say it's not for everyone, but it's for more people than the people that give it a chance. So
yes, absolutely. So you have Kara and you decide, and you know you want to adopt. So you decide that you're going to pursue international adoption for your next child. And you've kind of told us that it was something you always wanted to do, but what made you decide that now is the time to do it?
Oh, there were a lot of like little things that happened. But for us, it was more that we said, it's now or never. Like, let's just go for it. Why not now? Even though we were cleared after that medical disaster for me, I was on a medicine that I wasn't supposed to get pregnant. And then I weaned myself off. And then the doctor said, hey, you can add to your family. Kara was about 2, not quite 2 at that time. And it just, Doug and I said, why not? And we started looking to special needs adoption through China. And as I start looking at these children on what's called the shared list, I would look at this list of 2,000 children, their videos, their files, and it's like an abbreviated file about them with their special need, their name, their age, where they were found, whatnot. My heart was just broken open. This was for months. Every single night for hours, I would pour over these children. I probably knew all 2,000 of them by name or face. And one of the verses that one of the adoption advocates, it just really spoke to me. Brooke is an adoption advocate, and she posted this verse. And I just took it and printed it straight from her Facebook. I had to go all the way back to 2013. So this 2013, it says, once our eyes are opened, we cannot pretend we don't know what to do. God, who weighs our hearts and keeps our souls, knows what we know and holds us responsible to act. Proverbs 24:12. Isn't that good?
Yes.
So I just went, I'm like, and that was me. I just had this passion of like, okay, these are these children that are waiting. They don't have a mom and dad. And here I am, and I want to be their mom. Like, let me do what it takes. So I got another job as a nanny. I got a job as a personal cook, and just saved and saved. We raised, it was not easy, I would say, but we raised $36,000 in 10 weeks to adopt. For the process to adopt Katie. Now, Katie, I saw her. I knew that is our daughter. It's a cool story, but with each one of our kids, I just knew this is our daughter. And just like I knew with Kara on the ultrasound.
Yeah.
A little different then. So Katie was deaf, and she was born without holes to her ears. She has no actual opening to her ears on either side. And we knew that she would be deaf, or at least moderately deaf, where if you speak really loudly, she can hear you. So we said, let's learn sign language. I have my degree in linguistics. We started learning sign language. I picked up on it really quickly.
And you taught the people around you that were going to be in her life. That impressed me so much.
Oh, thank you. I had like a community children's class for sign language and an adult class for sign language, because I wanted people to communicate with her. We can't bring her into a hearing town and have everyone be able to communicate. We lived 4 miles from the best deaf school in New Jersey. So the way I describe it is it's like we were going to visit the country of deafness. So we learned the language, we packed for deafness, we prepared, we heard stories about the culture of deafness, and then we landed abruptly, boop, boop, in the country of autism.
Yes.
So she was deaf, and she is deaf. That part was accurate. And I don't think China was trying to pull the wool over our eyes, so to speak. I believe they just didn't know. She was 4.5 years old. And when we arrived, she was the size of like an 18-month-old. Just teeny tiny, and just developmentally, the best way to put it, and I say this delicately, is she was animalistic. Just food, punishment, sleep. That's it. And the way that she responded to everybody within 90 seconds, and you can see it in the video. There's a video of me meeting her, and you can see it in my face. I was so happy to meet this baby that was my baby. I prayed for her for 9 months. From the time we said yes to the time she was in our arms was 9 months. And she comes in our arms, and I immediately know, oh, this is autism. There's autism here. And I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how to process that. And the Lord never left me. And I used to say, oh, it'll get better from here. She'll only get better. And it's hard, Jen, because as I've spoken in different places, and I used to say, I said, okay, God, like I felt like I was standing at the base of Mount Everest and looking up and saying, you are going to have to help me every step of this way. Like, don't leave me now, God. I need you. You brought me this far. I need you. There's no way I'm going to make it without you. But I know that it will get better. It did get better, but it also got harder in different ways. And it just changed. And she had a secondary condition called PANDAS or PANS, that neurological condition where she gets flares. And during those flares, it is incredibly hard. Or everything. We just adore this little girl. Like this, Katie Grace is like, she is there's something about her where when the rest of the world is going crazy, Doug and I will argue over who gets Katie. Like, can I hold her? He's like, can I hold her? And we just like hold her and go, Katie. Because she's in her own world, but her world makes sense. Her world is safe. And her world, there's no drama, there's no lies, there's no pretense. It's just real. And I think that's one of the things that having Katie did a lot of stuff for me that was positive, but it stripped away anything in me that was pretense. There's nothing left. Because when you're at a restaurant and your kid is grabbing food off other people's table and writhing around on the floor, and people have no idea what's going on and they're staring at you, there's something that gets taken away from you that is a good thing. The part of you that wants to impress other people or wants people to think, oh, she's a good mom. No, I actively had people saying, I had people that were very negative in my life that was saying, Jamie doesn't know how to be a mom. And Jamie should just, hey, maybe she should. One person even said, you should try to spank the autism right out of her. And I'm like,
whoa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had a group of very bitter people who would call Katie. I found out years later, thank God I did not know. I found out years later they would call her Jamie's mistake.
Oh.
And and it took everything. There's an advocacy moment. I finally met with the person who was saying that one day. And in our 2-hour meeting, he cried no fewer than 7 times, because I finally was like, I'm done. Like, I to take it, say, oh, okay. And then finally I had too much insecurity. And once I got out of that mindset, I said to him, I said, who do you think you are? I said, this is not from God. Idea that you have that she's my mistake or that I somehow am not adequate as her mom. Not walked a mile in my shoes. You don't know what a gift this child is. And even behavior doesn't fit into what you are picturing a child's behavior, that they should be seen and not heard, or it doesn't matter, because my God loves Katie Grace, and he made her and he finds her to be beautiful, worthy of love, worthy of being adopted, and he finds me to be adequate, and he equips me. So it was like I just learned to go, no more of that.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So we think a lot of times advocacy, and we hear the mama bear comes out, and there is a little bit of this, hey, I am going to protect.
Yeah.
But advocacy is not brash, and advocacy is not plowing through. It's advocating. It's working towards a common good. Is that a correct assessment?
I would say it's a great point. So And I have to say, it's funny because he brought that up in this meeting, this man. He said, I saw you posted something about being a mama bear. I don't like that because that seems aggressive. And I go, I said, well, that's very interesting that you feel that way. I said, let me tell you what that means to me. And I said, to me, it means that those are my cubs and I will lay down my life for them. And I don't want to be aggressive. I don't want to be brash. I certainly want to respect my Lord with how I interact with people. But if somebody actively is trying to harm my cub, I will do what it takes to stop them and protect my cub. And that's the way creation, that's the span of creation, and I can do it in a respectful way. And you will get more bees with honey than you will vinegar, as they say in the South. So I have learned when I'm in an IEP meeting, which I believe in Chicago, do they call it an IEP meeting?
I think so.
Plan. So two of my kids, possibly three, will have an IEP. And when I'm in a meeting, I say to them, I start with all the therapists. I have a team of like 12 people for Katie. And I sit with them and I say, I want to thank you. I want to start by saying, I'm not here to complain about anything. I'm here to thank you for everything that you do for my child. I tell them if I could at Christmas time, I would give every single one of you a cruise. And they're like, oh, thank you, Jamie. I'm like, that doesn't mean you get a cruise.
It's the thought that counts.
It's the thought that counts. But I would. I mean, I especially this year, Jen, I'm working so closely with her teacher of the deaf, with her speech therapist, with her occupational therapist. I love them. I know them. We interact very often. And they mean the world to me. But then there's times that the system fails her. So maybe the education system fails her. And that's when my mama bear, even if I'm respectful, I'm firm, I'm organized, I pray through it first, but I say, hey, this is inappropriate. And that happened once. I brought it up recently, that they were trying to get her to just use a device so that they could save money. This was one of the districts was doing this, trying to save money by not giving her access to her language, which is sign language. And I said in the meeting, I said, quite frankly, this is very inappropriate for a child that this is her language. And I'm sorry, I will not sign anything that takes away my child's access to her language. And somebody who just didn't understand sign language, it's just a ignorant said, well, it's the same as Spanish. You know, we expect a Spanish student to learn English. And I said, no. I mean, I was kind of taken back and I said, I see where you might think that. I said, but you know better, you do better. That is not accurate. For a deaf child, they don't have access to learning English, spoken English and hearing English. They need access to their language. They deserve it. And that reminds me of the quote that I've used many times when I speak to special need parents. It's by Rita Pearson. There was a TED Talk by her. She's an amazing educator. She says, every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. I believe that so much for Katie. I believe that so much for Jacqueline. My oldest daughter is adopted through foster care. Also,
I was just going to say, you got involved with foster care, and that's where your other two came in. So tell us a little about that.
So then we decided to do foster care, and there's so many different aspects I could share, but I'll focus in on, we were given the amazing gift of our oldest daughter, Jacqueline. And she walked into my foyer. And once again, I shared this story the other day with someone. They said, how did you foster Jackie? She walked in my foyer. I didn't even know that she needed to be fostered. I didn't privy to that kind of information when she came to me. I just was supposed to babysit her for the day. And I was the only foster mom who knew sign language. And this is so God. This is so God, Jen, because when I prepared, remember I said all this stuff, I prepared for the country of deafness. I prepared for Jackie. God had me preparing for Jackie because when I prepared, I was at like 2,000 signs. Katie had no signs. When she came to us, it took 6 months for her to really start signing it all. Right now, she's at about 400 signs. But God was preparing me years before for Jacqueline. And I had no clue. So I was preparing for a child that had trauma, deafness, but was otherwise typical. That's Jackie, not Katie. And God equipped me to be Katie's mama, but he really, all that time, all these different things to prepare me, it was for Jackie too. And so Jackie walked into my foyer, and I'm telling you, Jen, it was the same feeling I got with Katie. It was this overwhelming feeling that this child was my daughter. And it didn't even make sense because she had 2 brothers with her that I couldn't have had, or I would have had 6 kids at the time with other kids we were fostering. And I just said to God, what do I do with that feeling? Like, this is such an odd feeling that I feel this incredible maternal care for her. And I didn't tell anyone because I was so freaked out by the feeling. I'm like, where is this coming from? It's like and I just got this feeling like you need to pray for her, pray for her, pray for her. This maternal, this daughter figure. So I'm praying for her. Weeks later, I get a phone call, and the woman says, Jamie, is a woman from the division for foster care. And she said, Jamie, I know this is coming out of left field. And it was so weird because I just knew. And she goes, would you be open to adopting Jackie? And I went, oh, I literally hit my knees. I hit my knees on the ground. I was like, you have no idea. I said to her, I said, you have no idea. You have no idea. I was waiting for this call. And I said, yes, let me talk to my husband. And I asked him, he said, yes, we're supposed to be her parents. Yeah. So we adopted Jackie, and then we got Lacey. And Lacey was a similar kind of thing where we get a call. We just gone through heartbreak of saying goodbye to our foster son. And we get this call, and they say, we have this beautiful 11-day-old baby that's in the hospital, and nobody is open to taking her. And I said, me. So I ran over to Doug's office, his church office, and I said, Doug, and he knows that look on my face. I said, I have a question for you. And he's like, and he goes, let me sit down about this question. And I said, there's this baby. And like, as soon as I said it, I just said, there's this baby, honey, and she's 11 days old, and she's still in the hospitals. No one will take her. And he said, go get her. Exact words, go get her. She's our daughter. So we got our Lacey. 2 years later, we were finally able to finalize it and adopt her. We just had her adoption day anniversary yesterday. Right around that time, we were able to adopt Jacqueline. We finalized like all our adoptions. And then my husband said, he's so funny. On adoption day, he says to the judge, he goes, I'm sorry, can I ask a question? I would like to get my adoption vasectomy today. So
that's hilarious.
You know what? Fair enough. We're 3 kids deep of adoptions. We've got 4 daughters. Our quiver is full. So
that is so funny.
If I learned to advocate for Jackie,
yeah,
advocate for Jackie, I've had to advocate for Lacey. Jackie, she's places and she's deaf and she's so smart, but people will just misunderstand her or take advantage of the situation. And I'll have to say, excuse me, like, my daughter has been through a lot in her life, and this is not appropriate, this plan that you're having. So either in the medical setting or I have to advocate a lot for her in the medical setting or in an education setting. But we have amazing teams because I advocate for it. And I teach other people to advocate.
Yes, I was going to say, and you've done a lot with other families, with other moms, and you started a group called Moms of Treasures, I know. Tell us just a little bit about that.
So basically we're a group of moms, and what happened was people say, a lot of times people say, so you have like a support group and you like teach them. And I say, no. They teach me. It's a mutual support group. So when I came home from China with Katie, I mean, man, Jen, I had maybe 1 or 2 people, and that's it, that had need children and were kind of walking with me through it. I felt so alone. I would go to the playground and my kid would be literally like eating dirt, and their kids are like playing and laughing. And I just felt this like sense of just isolation, worse than this year of pandemic isolation, way worse, because I had nobody. And I just felt, and I would try to talk to people that did love me, my mom, my friends, and they just, you could see it in their face that they cared. It's not that they didn't care. They cared, but they were like, oh, they just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I still need those relationships, but I badly was yearning for just to sit in a room and say something about my daughter and it not like it sounded like a pin was going to drop and people say,
right.
Oh, like awkward. So I started brainstorming, what could I do? I already led so many like Bible studies and moms connection groups. And I said, let's start one that's just special need moms of children with special needs, disabilities. Some people prefer the term disability. Some people prefer special needs. So we called it Moms of Treasures because there are treasures. And that came from so much negativity towards my Katie. I went, well, you know what? You may find her to be a disappointment, but she's my treasure. And really having that mindset. So we meet when it's not pandemic. We meet twice a month and we go out once a quarter for a mom's night out. Right. Our group is about, it's a lot. Our group is about 30 women, though not all of them will be there at one time. And the span of special needs, it's all different special needs, huge umbrella of special needs. Most of them at least have like an IEP. So to the degree in which they're not necessarily kids will be with their parents forever, like Katie, who will live with us forever. But man, the stuff I've learned from them, Jen, there's no words. There's no words how much they have taught.
Well, and obviously there was a need. And I wanted to ask you, so I'm guessing there's moms listening that have special needs kids who are feeling alone, just exactly the way you did. And I know in times when I have felt alone in my parenting, I've longed for someone to reach out to me, but usually it takes me reaching out to someone else. So how does, this mom who's feeling lonely and overwhelmed begin to build a community of support with other moms just like her? What could she do? What's her first step?
Fabulous question, Jen. And that's what I say a lot on like boards of like autism groups, and people say, I'm so alone. Where's your group? And I've had people drive an hour and a half to be at our group. It's not a surprise at all because there is nothing. So what I say to people that are too far, I say, okay, to have a friend, you be a friend. If you're alone, someone else is alone. So it's this idea of connection versus isolation. So one of my things where I speak places, one of the big themes I use everywhere is this idea that isolation breeds hopelessness and connection breeds hope. And that's just the G-meism, but like connection, this idea of it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be me. I'm a social person. You don't have to say, I'm going to have a tea party at my house and all of you can join me. And that may not be your thing. That's okay. Putting in Facebook has made it really easy for us. Putting in a New Jersey, like for instance, I'm in New Jersey Autism Moms group, but some people are in, I'm in my town's group. So I've also put in there, hey, just throwing it out there. My kids and I are going to be at the playground. If anyone else has children with special needs or disabilities and would like to join us, I'll be there for 2 hours on a given Saturday. And people will come that way. So it can be one-on-one. And hey, if you have a heart to connect with people, I truly believe God will help you connect with people. So if anyone needs more ideas, you can reach out to me and I'll have resources.
Absolutely. So let's flip that. So if the mom listening doesn't have special needs kids herself, but has friends who do, how can she be a support and an encouragement, and in a way that doesn't require that mom to overeducate or explain, but how can we support a mom in your situation?
I can tell you, because the easiest way to do it is to tell you about the people that support me who don't have children. So what means a lot to me is when people invite us over for dinner and they just simply ask, say, what would make Jackie feel the most comfortable? What do you need for Katie? What can I do to help you feel comfortable and make it easier on you? And to me, that's not an embarrassing question. It's a helpful question. And just acknowledging that it's hard to go places. For me, Katie is actually pretty easy at home. It's when we're in public that it's everything I can do to keep her safe. And now behavior has become quite difficult with Lacey.
Mm-hmm.
And just to keep her and Lacey safe is my main goal. So safety. So it helps me at church if somebody comes up and said, do you need an extra hand? I say, yes, please. And they'll just sit on the other end of the pew so that Katie or Lacey can't escape,
Yeah.
So
they just block.
These COVID times and people saying, hey, can I carry that for you? Can I that's not degrading to me. But I've also come to a place in my life that I've learned to advocate for myself and say, I need help. I need help with this, or I'm not gonna be able to make it at this event if I don't have an extra set of hands. So your friend might get offended if they haven't got to that place, but I think most special need moms, we're special in the sense that we've gotten to the place that we're like, okay,
yeah,
I do.
So just normalize the question, like saying, like we would ask, do you have any food allergies or anything restrictions? We'll just ask that same question around your kids. What do you need me to know or do or help
to make it easy?
Yeah.
And also just to not act like their child is. And if somebody has the heart to do that, I doubt they're going to project a feeling of your kid isn't welcome here. There are people that I was friends with before we had Katie, who I no longer, I went one time to their house. They offended me so greatly and I never went back. One person, they had just gotten a dog and they compared Katie's behavior to their dog. And oh yeah, my dog's like that. And let's see if she wants this dog toy. And I never went back. It was when you take away the dignity of that child,
right.
and remember this is a child and this is their child that they love. So I think anyone that would have a heart for that, they're probably not going to make a faux pas like that. It's big, just the empathy.
Yeah. And dignity. That is a really good one to put in there. So moms who are listening that, who needs to advocate for her child, but is just I would dread that. I hate conflict, so like you said, I know you went through a journey where certain layers were stripped away, but what is your advice to give her on how she can do it effectively? What is there you kind of alluded to being organized and, clear, but what is something that will make advocating more effective and easier to lean into?
So it just depends what aspect. So if we're talking about advocating within, I should say what environment. So are we talking about in a medical setting or an education setting or in a social setting? For me, what I've tried to do in all those settings, in a sense, I'm trying to think what would go in all those settings, is staying calm. There's a quote that I don't have in front of me, but basically says, when little people have big emotions, we want to share our calm, not share their chaos. We don't want to take on their chaos. We want to share our calm. So to stay calm in the situation and just say, hi. So if I'm at a restaurant and something's off, I might say to somebody, hey, just letting you know, I'm really sorry if something is, or, good example would be if we're seated too close to a buffet or too close to a food cart, that will not work for Katie. So things like that, I would say, thank you for seating us here. So try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Give people the doubt that they're not trying to be rude, that they're probably just ignorant to a certain situation. Well, how would they know that Katie can't sit by?
They're oblivious. Yeah.
Give them the benefit of the doubt. Your life will go better if you do that. And then saying, hey, just so you know, I really want to make things easier for you by her not grabbing this, and easier for her because then she won't have the anxiety and compulsion to grab this. So if you can we sit over here? So that's just a quick example. I basically advocate for them everywhere we go. But that's
Yes.
an example.
That's really helpful. Well, this has been fascinating and enjoyable, and I have learned a lot, and I know the moms listening have too. So as our time wraps up, and this is always a weird segue, but it's a fun question that I ask everyone: as what is your favorite gadget?
You're so cute. I love it. I should have brought it up here. It's so cool. So a friend of mine from growing up sent me the link and said, I think Katie would love this. And it's funny because people come over and they play with it. It's on Amazon. It's like,
and I'll put a link. I'll put a link for people.
But it's called basically like, I think the brand is like TOWO. But it's basically like this little, almost looks like an abacus, which she loves, abacus. And you just get these wooden, which is nice because they're durable. She tears up cardboard stuff. But it's a durable wooden little color cards, and it shows what pattern they're supposed to do. And then they make the pattern on that. But it takes a lot of motor planning and planning ahead because you can only fit so many things per. So
okay.
In front of me, but she'll have the link. It's great for kids developmental age, I'd say about 6 through 10. So
okay. Yeah. Wonderful. That's fun. It's interesting. It is hard to describe when I saw the picture that you sent me. So
it's great.
Yeah. So Jamie, if there is a mom who would love to connect with you for advice or guidance on how to start a support group around her, an encouragement group, we'll call it. How can people connect with you?
So a lot of people, because I also train foster parents and whatnot, I just send them to my Facebook and they can connect with me via private message if they want to. So it's Jamie Dawn, DAWN, Becker, BECKER. And that's a good way to get a hold of me. And I put a lot of content on there that's hopefully helpful, resources.
Yes.
So, and of course, I also have Moms of Treasures. So if you were to look up Moms of Treasures on Facebook, that's also me. And that's a good way to get a hold of me, either of those.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time today. And it's always a joy to talk to you.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you. And I'm so proud of you. It was so exciting to me when you adopted. I'm like,
oh, thank you. Yes, I wanted to be like Jamie.
We knew, oh, please. Like, it was so funny. Like, we knew each other before this, and now it's so full circle that we both added to our family in this very unique and special way. And it's such a blessing. My kids are my treasures, as hard as it can be. And I'm the first one to say this. Jesus doesn't leave us, and he does love us. And he's going to help us every step of the way. And I'm very, very thankful for that. And thank you, Jen, for just having the heart to do this. So,
my pleasure. Well, thanks, Jamie.